Apparently, I'm not going to do the breakdance. Coming out will be the Fireside Chats with Joseph and Andy. They both have corporates, capital investments, and startup experience. That would be a very insightful Fireside Chats to learn how technology is transforming healthcare industry. Without further ado, let's welcome Joseph and Andy.
It's so good to be sitting on this sofa here. Hello everyone. Again, my name is Andy, and I'm leading the commercial and marketing operations in Organon, Asia Pacific, Japan. So a bit more introduction of myself is I used to work in Merck. It's called MSD outside of US for a couple of years. And then my background is I'm a data scientist by train. So I did a PhD in quantum computing and decided that, maybe data is something that's fun. And I also did a few startups in different areas, in e-commerce, real estate, and so on and so forth. Right now, I'm working for a big pharma company. So Organon is the spin-off from Merck. Right, and today is indeed a privilege to be able to have this fire chat session together with this very knowledgeable, accomplished, distinguished, expert that's sitting on my right here, Joseph. So maybe Joseph, can you just do a very quick introduction of yourself and also what Verge HealthTech Fund is about?
Absolutely. Thanks, Andy. So I'm Joseph, co-founder and managing partner of Verge HealthTech Fund. Before doing all of this, I was a programmer, a scientist, but not a real one because I don't have quantum in my PhD, unfortunately.
You don't need quantum.
I worked on new cancer therapies, oncolytic viruses, nanoparticles, and so on. And then I accidentally co-founded a medical device company that worked on real-time brain imaging using EEGs during my PhD, and that exposed me to the world of business and the concept that you can have the greatest invention in the world, but if you don't have a way to commercialize it and get it to people and have something that makes business sense, it's not going to go anywhere. Fast forward a bit, I did some brief stints in investment, private equity investment, worked as a management consultant. Merck, his previous employer, was one of my clients many, many, many years ago.
Did they pay you a lot of money?
Yeah. Sorry?
Did they pay you a lot?
Probably more than they should have, but I think that can be said for a lot of professional services, especially on the premium side of things. And then I was, servicing global pharma and biotech companies with their R&D and reimbursement strategies out of North America. And then I was transferred to Singapore in 2014 to help start and grow the healthcare practice in Asia Pacific. And, the first thing I noticed when I arrived to Singapore was just how clean and efficient and beautiful it was. And we're both actually, ironically, meeting for the first time in Taiwan, even though we're based in Singapore.
Yeah.
But you go 20 minutes north, you go 20 minutes south, and people are dying of the same things they were dying of 100 years ago. And that was a crying shame. And my clients, who are still multinational pharma and biotech companies, while they wanted to do something about it, they kind of couldn't. And the folks who could were these young, usually, actually, that's not fair, some very middle-aged entrepreneurs as well that were trying to solve these fundamental healthcare challenges with technology. And they couldn't raise any money, frankly. It was very, very difficult because it was much easier to invest in e-commerce or fintech or just plain good old-fashioned property. And I thought, hey, I understand the market opportunity. I understand the technology. Why don't I start funding them myself? As Merck and others were paying quite a nice premium on our services, so I could afford to start angel investing. And then I realized that was far more fulfilling and impactful than writing really expensive PowerPoint slides that no one actually ever read. And the desire to do that full-time led me to starting Verge because, you know, there's only so much I can do with whatever savings I can put aside personally. If we start institutionalizing this and getting external investors to start supporting this, then we can do a whole lot more. And I would have ideally liked to have joined a venture fund, but unfortunately I couldn't find any that did really, really early stage investment into health tech that was impactful, serving the needs of people that were in our part of the world, but they could come from anywhere. And there wasn't an investment fund that had that thesis, and that is the origin of Verge, and that is essentially what we do. We invest in technologies all around the world that can make a real big difference in improving access, affordability, efficiency, and quality of healthcare. And so far, across our team, because it's not just myself, and I'm blessed to have two of my partners in the audience today, so please do find them if you have something interesting in health tech you want to seek funding for. We've now, across the team, invested in 49 health tech companies across 20 countries and have impacted over 53 million lives in the process, which might sound like a big number, but it's still a very small number because there's over 4 billion people that still don't have access to quality healthcare or even basic healthcare. That's not fair. So that's Verge in a nutshell. A little bit of a long introduction, but hopefully provides the context for this discussion.
Yeah, so thanks, Joseph, for that comprehensive introduction. Now, in your introduction, I'm just wondering, for Verge Healthcare Tech, are there, when you make the investment, are there any specific therapeutic areas that you're looking into, or is more on the tech side? Like, how do you actually assess where the money goes?
That is a complex question. We'll answer very simply. It has to be a serious in a big therapeutic area. So one thing you'll notice in the past 50 years, there's been a dramatic change in what kills us. 50 years ago was mostly accidents, trauma, infectious diseases, and with the exception of HIV and COVID, and maybe to a lesser extent malaria and dengue, we've largely conquered a lot of these. And what's really killing us these days are non-communicable diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, cancer. These are things that are very quiet, and they'll kill us slowly until they don't, right? These can develop for 20 years, 30 years before they become symptomatic at all. And our health systems are just not built for that, unfortunately. Our hospitals are great if you've got a pole sticking out of your chest. You go in there, it's like a symphony of healthcare practitioners and surgeons and nurses, making sure that you're bandaged up and good to go in no time. But for something that will kill you slowly over 20 years, you can't go to the hospital multiple times a year or even go see the doctor multiple times a year. Here's really where the next generation of health and technology can make a big difference, and really where prevention will be key.
Right. And, one of the trends that I'm also seeing in the market, right, especially after COVID, is that if you were to look at this very large market cap pharmaceutical company, a lot of them are pivoting or moving into oncology, the area of cancer. And that, in my opinion, I feel that, that in the area of primary care, it's a little bit that is being under, under a bit of love at the moment. So what is your take in this shift? Has COVID, right, shifted the investment in different kind of therapeutic area while, underlooking, or under-investing into other areas as well?
I think, well, we can talk about oncology on one hand and COVID on a second hand. Maybe we'll start with that first. So COVID, as you're well aware, created this great buzz around telemedicine, which has since popped. But what it did do is it opened Pandora's box. It showed you that not only can telemedicine work, but it can also be financed by governments and insurance. That's never going back. That has been the key barrier to resistance for healthcare administrators, doctors, insurance companies, governments, they've said, we just can't figure out how to pay for it. We can't figure out whether it works or not. Sorry, that's done. Now it's a matter of second order effects, because telemedicine up until today is still a glorified Skype call or a Zoom call. You need clinical grade telemetry to allow your healthcare practitioners to actually make proper decisions. And it doesn't necessarily have to be synchronous either. It can be asynchronous. So monitoring an action at a distance in the background, that's something that can be really interesting. Now down to primary care and oncology, cancer is still a top 3 killer no matter where you are in the world, almost anywhere in the world that you are. And the sad reality is most of it is actually preventable. You can prevent 2/3 of all cancers. And that sounds a bit of a bold claim, but do fact check me on that. The other thing is, if you can catch cancer in stage 1, it is above 90% curable. But where is all the attention going into? It's going into immuno-oncology. It's going into these designer small molecules that are targeted. That's really aiming towards, stage 2, 3, 4, right? But imagine if you put a ton of resources into that early detection, which could be at the primary care layer, or it could be at home, or prevention, and then just optimizing for that stage 1, and then reserving, your oncology budget for those rare few cases that slip through the screening at various levels. So there's huge opportunity there, but it's in such a radically different direction than what multinational pharma companies are used to. And then the other existential threat is maybe we'll figure out that universal cure. Maybe we'll just figure out how to get those cells in our body to stop secreting that don't eat me signal and get your immune system to just wipe it up like it does 99.99% of cancers that you do get that doesn't turn malignant.
Yeah. And in your question, in your answers earlier, you mentioned about preventive care. So can you tell us a little bit more, like how has that becoming? So that is becoming increasingly important, obviously, right? So what do you see in the upcoming, 1 to 2 years, the trends in that area, preventive care?
I hate to predict, so maybe what I can
Your
do,
thoughts, your opinion.
My opinion. Well, maybe what I wish would happen. And then, as investors, it's our responsibility to kind of choose the future in which we live by backing or not backing certain technologies, right? So one thing I would really like to understand is to have greater population information. And this is something that is really great for Taiwan, because Taiwan has some of the greatest healthcare data in the world, believe it or not, because you've got National Health Record, National Health Insurance Agency, so National Claims Database. You can start linking diet, lifestyle, behavior, medications, physiological parameters to prevalence of oncological events. And that's really powerful, because once you understand what are some of the key drivers of cancer, you can tweak it even further. So I'd like to see some more analysis on that, and then regimens developed that are personalized and precision oriented that would allow you to dial up that ability to prevent. That's what's missing. I'd really like to see that.
Okay, yeah. So, obviously now I work for Organon. So
Yeah.
Organon is a company focusing on women's health. And I think for the longest time, we as a company, we feel that this is an area that's hugely, uninvested. That's hugely not being given a lot of care and attention. I just want to also ask, your opinion, right? What is your take on women's healthcare?
I agree with Organon's thesis, and I would hope that we have opportunities to work together much in the future. And I'll throw that back at you after. But I think it is a tremendous opportunity. I mean, women represent half of all humans on this planet. They make a ton of purchasing decisions for the household and for themselves. And there are a bunch of diseases that uniquely affect their physiology. And I'm not talking about things that are specific to women's reproductive organs or other features. I'm talking about the fact that they are predisposed to certain diseases in different proportions than men are. One example is Alzheimer's disease, right? Why do women get Alzheimer's more than men? Why are certain reactions more severe? Even when you have a heart attack and you test for blood troponin, the level of troponin in women's circulatory systems is lower than men for the same severity of heart attack, and sometimes your troponin test will miss it. So women will be sent home and they will die because the test says, hey, you didn't have a heart attack. Why is that? And we need to look at clinical trials to make sure that they're appropriately balanced, to make sure that we have these gender differences well articulated when you are testing for new therapies or diagnostics or care pathways. So I think that's really interesting. So maybe I'll turn it back to you. Organon has certainly spun out, it seems, to focus on women's health. And what are some of the areas that you're focusing on? And what are some of your problem statements to help maybe the audience here better tailor their startup solutions to things that Organon would need and maybe we should invest into?
Well, so I think, as what we have discussed earlier on, we feel that this is an area, number one, this is an area that is heavily underinvested. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to women's health, they tend to think about, women's health is in the area of contraception, is in the area of fertility, endometriosis. But I think, for Organon, we are actually looking broader than just, these therapeutic areas. As what Joseph has correctly pointed out, we are also looking into areas or therapeutic areas that disproportionately affect women. So for example, like anxiety, depression. I think these are some of the areas that we are, very actively, whether is it from global or part of the region, looking out for solutions that helps to address this area. And then the second thing, it's, if you were to think about pharmaceutical company, most of the time, we think of it from the, acquiring a product, right? Really acquiring an asset. But I think over the last couple of months, there is a bit more appetite to also look into areas of diagnostics, devices as well. So this is the second area that Organon is looking very strongly into. And then number three, it's if you look at now coming back to that women's health portfolio, right? We do have data that within Asia itself, one of the areas that is widely discussed by a lot of governments around this region is in the area of fertility, right? Now, birth rates. Now, 5 of the lowest birth rate markets, they all sit in this region. And I think, Organon also is positioning itself to be, a partner to how do we then, go out and work together with government. So this is not so much on that, really giving that treatment to treat infertility, but it is something like, we want to create a movement, a social cause to address these issues that are very important to the government. So if there are, certain, groups or solutions around, helping, the markets to be able to, kind of boost the fertility rate, I think that's something that we will also be very keen to look into as well.
So you heard Andy, you know where to prioritize.
Okay, coming back. Now, Joseph, so I think, for Verge HealthTech Fund, again, there's also a lot of people, working in health tech, in startups. What are some of the, areas or key things that will really attract you into, writing your check, putting your money into the startups?
So I did mention, are you solving a big enough and a serious enough problem? I think that's kind of table stakes for venture because, unlike other kinds of investors, we're really looking for these exponential type returns because we're inherently investing in very risky endeavors, we want to make sure that there is the potential for every investment to, potentially go up 20 times in value, for example. So we are looking for big problems with large addressable markets. And because and not every fund is like this in this respect, we want also to impact as many lives as possible. So, I mean, rare diseases are really important. They're getting a lot of investment, but they are by nature rare. So we are looking for things that affect millions or tens or hundreds of millions of people around the world, and that's where we can really move the needle. But the most important thing has nothing to do with the problem or the solution, it's really the team. We're investing so early that we're investing in the people that are proposing to do something about a problem. And we're looking for people that are collaborative, that are coachable, that have the necessary, expertise and experience, be it clinical, commercial, technical, that can really pull this off. Because health tech is really difficult. And it's certainly not for the faint of heart. It could be 10 years before you see any sort of real progress or traction or exit. Hopefully not that long, but I've seen some cases. So we really want to make sure that this is the team that is going to take this solution and make it reality. That's the number one thing.
Okay, so I know that we are running out of time, but I just want to ask you one final question. Would you give one piece of advice to the budding, startups out there working in the health tech area? What is the one advice that you would give?
Can I give two?
Sure.
Okay, number one, don't use the word disrupt. That instantly puts the defenses up of all the stakeholders you're going to be dealing with in healthcare. Healthcare is one of the slowest, most regulated, most conservative industries. So whenever you say disrupt to say a doctor or a payer, they're going to think, oh, this person knows nothing about healthcare.
That is so true.
And then the second one is you're going to get tons of advice from all sorts of people, ranging from, your parents to your, business mentor, to your professors, to your hairdresser. Always qualify the advice you get by the motivations and the experience of that person giving the advice. Because if you listen to everyone, you will go nowhere, unfortunately.
Wow, that's a very good advice. So thank you so much, Joseph, for sitting through with me in this fire chat, and I hope to connect with all of you here later on during breaks. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks so much, Andy. Thanks, everyone.